The sadistic side of Nazi Commandant Amon Göth was not hidden. It was proudly on display. From the balcony of his villa at Płaszów concentration camp, he would casually shoot prisoners for amusement, embodying cruelty so extreme it shocked even his fellow SS officers. Göth was not just another cog in the Nazi machine. He was a walking embodiment of terror. As commandant, he turned daily life into a nightmare of torture, public executions, and psychological torment. His reign reveals the darkest edge of Nazi ideology, where mass murder was accompanied by personal pleasure and suffering. This article explores how Göth rose to power, how he turned a labor camp into a hellscape, and how justice ultimately caught up with him. His story forces us to confront the depths of human cruelty, not in theory, but in chilling, documented reality. It is a story not for the weak, but one the world must not forget. Amon Leopold Göth was born on December 11, 1908, in Vienna, Austria-Hungary. Raised in a conservative Catholic household, his early years gave little hint of the monster he would become. But in the volatile political climate of post-World War I Austria, Göth gravitated toward nationalist and anti-Semitic ideologies. By the age of 24, he had joined the Nazi Party, and soon after, the SS, committing himself fully to Adolf Hitler's radical vision of racial purity. Göth's rise through the ranks was swift and marked by ambition. In 1940, he was assigned to the SS Totenkopfverbände, the unit responsible for running concentration camps. His brutality and zeal made him an ideal candidate for further authority, and in February 1943, he was appointed commandant of the newly formed Kraków-Płaszów concentration camp in occupied Poland. It was at Płaszów that Göth's sadism flourished. His leadership style was one of absolute control, implemented through terror. Unlike some Nazi officials who tried to conceal their violence behind bureaucracy, Göth was openly murderous, taking personal part in executions, beatings, and psychological torment. His name soon became synonymous with fear, not only among prisoners, but even among his own subordinates, who were unnerved by his unrestrained brutality. At the Kraków-Płaszów concentration camp, Amon Göth ruled with terror so extreme that it defied even the already brutal norms of the Nazi camp system. Installed as commandant in February 1943, Göth transformed Płaszów into a slaughterhouse where death was not only expected, it was entertainment. One of the most infamous aspects of his sadism was his habit of shooting prisoners at random from the balcony of his villa, which overlooked the camp. Survivors recall waking each morning with dread, knowing that their lives could end with the casual pull of Göth's trigger. His victims included men, women, and even children, chosen not for disobedience, but for his whim. He unleashed vicious attack dogs on prisoners, often commanding them to tear victims apart for minor infractions or no reason at all. Eyewitnesses describe scenes of men being ripped to shreds as Göth watched with satisfaction. His cruelty extended to camp staff, many of whom feared crossing him, not out of duty, but out of terror. Göth personally oversaw the liquidation of the Kraków ghetto in March 1943. Thousands of Jews were rounded up, with many killed on the spot. Those sent to Płaszów found no refuge. Forced labor, starvation, and torture awaited them. The camp lacked medical care and proper shelter, and disease was rampant. For many, Płaszów became a slow death sentence. For others, it ended with a bullet to the head from Göth himself. Unlike some commanders who distanced themselves from hands-on violence, Göth was deeply involved. He took pleasure in humiliation, ordering beatings, public hangings, and executions, sometimes carrying them out personally. One chilling account described him killing a housemaid for misplacing a shirt. His actions weren't just cruel, they were methodical. Göth weaponized unpredictability, creating an environment where terror itself was the primary tool of control. Despite Amon Göth's reign of terror, it was not his brutality that first led to his downfall. It was theft and corruption. By mid-1944, Göth's reckless behavior had drawn the attention of the SS itself. He was arrested in September 1944 and charged by the SS with embezzlement, unauthorized killings, and abuse of power. Even in the context of Nazi terror, Göth's excesses were considered dangerous and potentially destabilizing. However, before any SS internal punishment could be finalized, the war ended. Göth was captured by American forces in 1945 and handed over to the newly re-established Polish authorities. He was one of the first high-ranking Nazis to be tried in Poland by the Supreme National Tribunal in Krakow. His trial began in August 1946 and drew considerable attention. Eyewitness after eyewitness described the horrors of Płaszów under Göth's command. The random shootings, the dog attacks, the public executions. The evidence included photographs, camp records, and survivor testimony, many of which painted him as the very face of sadistic cruelty. Göth's defense was hollow. He denied personal killings, blamed higher orders, and claimed mental illness. None of it mattered. The court found him guilty of war crimes and crimes against humanity. On September 13, 1946, Amon Göth was executed by hanging at Montelupic prison in Krakow. In a final twist of justice, he was hanged near the very location where he had once overseen mass murder. His body was cremated and his ashes scattered, his legacy consigned to infamy. His execution marked one of the earliest and clearest acts of justice after the Holocaust. But it also forced a grim realization. Göth had not acted alone, nor was he an aberration. He was one of many, yet he stood out for making evil not just a system, but a spectacle. Amon Göth's legacy is a chilling study in how ideology, power, and sadism can converge within a single individual. He was not just a servant of the Nazi system. He was an architect of fear who reveled in cruelty. His story strips away any illusion that the Holocaust was committed solely by faceless bureaucrats or blind followers. Göth was fully aware of his actions, and he enjoyed them. His case is often highlighted in Holocaust education because of its extreme nature. Yet what makes it most disturbing is that it wasn't unique. He was part of a larger apparatus that allowed, encouraged, and rewarded violence. His actions may have been more overt, more personal, but they were not anomalies. Göth reminds us that evil does not always hide. It can wear a uniform, walk openly, and smile while pulling the trigger. His trial and execution serve as a necessary record, not just of punishment, but of recognition. Victims were heard, crimes were named, but his story also raises difficult questions. How does a society produce a man like Amon Göth? And how many others could follow in his footsteps if power is unchecked and hatred left to fester? The story of Amon Göth is a brutal reminder of how far one man can descend when given absolute power and driven by hate. His reign at Płaszów wasn't marked by efficiency or order. It was ruled by terror, randomness, and sadistic pleasure. His execution brought a measure of justice, but it could never undo the horrors he inflicted. We remember Göth not to glorify evil, but to expose it, to study how ordinary men can become executioners. And in doing so, we must ask, if a man like Amon Göth can emerge from a civilized world, what are we doing today to stop it from happening again?